Hey everybody, it's Eric with CR Property Group and Integrity First Home Buyers. On my way to our Maryland office today and just wanted to hop on here and talk a little bit about a pretty hot topic that comes up a lot when we're talking with buyers and sellers, and people are asking, maybe they had an appraisal done on the property and it came back with a certain value, and then trying to figure out how that appraised value actually impacts what to expect when you sell the home. So I just wanted to give you some feedback about appraisals and how they're done and why they're done, and then what that information means when you go to buy or sell a property. Because ultimately, a property's value or a car's value or an antique's value, whatever it is that you're selling, is really what someone's willing to pay for it. So that's kind of a catchphrase that a lot of people use, and I wanted to clear up exactly what that means. So, if a property appraises for, let's say, $500,000, normally the appraisal process requires an appraiser to do an inspection of the property. They'll list all of the pertinent information: beds, baths, square footage, land, amenities, meaning, does it have extra garages? Does it have, even things like patios and pole buildings or pools. All of those things are reflected in an appraisal, and they basically put all of that information into a system that calculates the value or appraised value of your property based on what other homes have sold for, normally within a half mile or a mile radius, unless you're selling a property that's, maybe even rural location. And in some cases, they'll extend the search parameters to go a couple miles out or whatever they need. And it's really a mathematical calculation that eliminates a lot of the individual appraiser's ability to use their discretion. Now, sometimes appraisers will, factor in their own personal discretion when it comes to maybe one property that's sold was on a busy road, and the property that's being appraised is in a better location. Sometimes they can list those things, but it really takes a very mathematical approach to the property's value, when we all know on the market, most buyers and sellers aren't making a straight mathematical calculation of what they're willing to pay or what they'd like to sell it for. When sellers are selling properties, it often factors in what they paid for it, which doesn't really affect market value, but it does impact what a seller may be willing to let it go for. A buyer is going to make a decision about what they can afford. Again, not something that impacts appraised value or market value, but will definitely impact what the property will sell for. HOA fees, the individual real estate taxes on that particular property, all of these things factor into what someone's willing to pay, but don't necessarily factor into what the property would appraise for. So in today's market, appraisals are predominantly used by lenders to dictate what they will loan on the property. Most lenders will only lend up to, say 96.5% of the appraised value. So they're ordering the appraisal to dictate what the loan amount of the property is going to be for that individual borrower. So an appraisal is a great tool to get an idea of what other properties like yours have sold for, but you definitely should consult with a real estate agent, or if you contact Integrity First Home Buyers, when we make an offer on the property, we're going to go through, what we believe are some of the pros and cons of your individual property, and then talk about how that may affect what we're willing to offer. Condition is a big one. And I see a lot of times in appraisals, we'll sell a completely renovated property, and when the appraiser does their analysis, our property is lumped into what's called C3 condition, which is part of the appraisal process. C1 is new construction. C2 is very little to minimal deferred maintenance. C3 is, let's say, average. So oftentimes we sell completely renovated properties that are assigned the same value as a property that might have not been renovated for, say, 15 years, but is in really good condition. To me, it's not the best approach or, a fair way of assessing those properties. So a lot of times our renovated homes appraise for the same value as a 10 or 15 year older property that hasn't been updated recently, but is in really good condition. But we all know that a buyer is willing to pay more for a property that has brand new kitchens, brand new baths, brand new flooring, brand new roof, brand new furnaces. So you just got to be careful that the appraised value is used as a estimate and a tool to decide what you could possibly list the property and sell for. But it's really just a report about other properties that have sold that are similar. And when you look at comparable sales, you're going to find that every property is a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, has less bathrooms. So it's a balancing act for an appraiser to try and figure out what those differences mean to a potential buyer. And at the end of the day, it's an educated guess, right? None of us, no matter how much experience we have or how much of an expert we are, can forecast exactly what a property is going to sell for. We can do a pretty good job of giving you a real good estimate and being, normally within a very small percentage of what it'll ultimately sell for. But it's a really tough task to try and figure out what a property will sell for exactly. You got so many moving parts, like, seller's assistance and what the appraisal may come in for. A property may sell for $250 and it appraises for $240. The seller's faced with maybe having to take $10,000 less for that property if they want to keep the deal together with that buyer. So then the property goes to settlement for $240 when it actually had been under agreement for $250. So you just have a lot of those, small little circumstances that come up with appraisals. And I just think, it's really important that if you have an appraisal done on a property, that you use it as a tool and another, example or idea of what other properties are selling for. Then really, you and your real estate agent have to figure out, how your property differs from those recent sales and whether or not it's worth a little bit more, the same amount, or maybe a little bit less than the other properties that have sold. And then how quickly you want the property to sell. The better you price the property, if it has a market value based on recent sales of $240, if you list it for $225, it's probably going to sell quicker because buyers know that if they're looking at a lot of properties in that area and they're all listed for $240, your property is listed for $225, your property will typically sell quicker than the other homes on the market that are a little bit more expensive. So just wanted to throw that information out there for you. We get a lot of people that asked about, my property appraised for $100,000. If we were to sell it to you for cash, what percentage of appraised value would you pay? And the answer really is that it varies depending on how accurate the appraisal is. So hope that's helpful. I'm on my way to Maryland. I'll be here the rest of the afternoon, and then tune in tonight at 7 p.m. Myself and Jeff Inch, owner of Inch & Company, does custom building, custom remodeling. Jeff's flipped a bunch of homes on his own. His family runs a substantial landscaping company that does landscaping all over York and Adams, Lancaster, Lebanon, Dauphin and Cumberland counties does great outdoor living space construction. I've seen tons of projects where they've built patios, and they built an enclosed bar patio space for me at my property. They do wonderful work. We're going to be on at 7 o'clock tonight talking about design, remodeling, how to prep your house for the fall. We're all getting ready to head back to school, and pretty soon, unfortunately, summer's going to be over. So we're going to get some tips from Jeff about how to prep your property for fall, and just dig into his experiences as a real estate investor and a construction expert. So it should be a good time. We'll see you guys tonight. Take care.